Book one one's about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. Named by Forbes as the Oracle of Aston, New York Times best-selling author, private equity CEO, attorney by trade, real estate investor, and many more. Hat, no other than Mr. Ari Rastegar.
Buddy, how you doing today?
Welcome, Mr. Ari. Excellent. And thank you so much for being part of Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Sure. Again, my name is Ari Rastegar. As you said, I'm an attorney by trade. I've always been a lover of books. My undergraduate studies was in English literature, and one day I thought maybe I could write a book myself. But in case the book isn't that good, I was sure to list a lot of great books at the very end. So, and I've
Hmm.
joked that hopefully it's worth the $10 on Amazon. And not too many years ago, I was delivering pizzas and flipping burgers and putting myself through two community colleges. And I remember one time working at Johnny Rockets flipping burgers, and having dreams of grandeur, of running a big business, and hopefully doing something meaningful for other people in life. That if I ever got to the other side, that I would tell the truth of what it actually took. And this book came about around that premise of a lot of failure, a lot of mistakes. And the first line of the book is, I hope you fail. I hope you fail a lot. And at this point in my life, after building a very large real estate investment business across 38 cities, 13 states, seven different asset classes, I've learned that failure is not only not a bad thing, but my new definition of failure is learning how to win. And hopefully, this book delves into some of my failures from health and business and life, so that you along your journey can not fail the way that I had, and maybe you'll come to see the old proverb that says only an idiot learns from their own failure. A wise person learns from the failures of others. So hopefully, this will give you a little bit of insight on your journey to contributing and doing great things in this world.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing to the world, Mr. Ari. Thank you. So today let's talk about the book itself. The title is provocative, the gift of failure. For many, failure feels like opposite of a gift. How do you define the gift and what's required us to be able to receive it?
That's a wonderful question. And so, as I said, failure really is learning how to win if you take a moment to pause. So failing really is the human condition, and an analogy that I've given over the years is, watching a toddler learn how to walk. They stand up, they fall down, they stand up, they fall down until they're standing up a little longer, and then they fall down. Then after some trial and error, they learn, and they walk. And this is very much the human condition of any skill in anything: becoming a great parent, a business person, learning how to play the violin. You mimic, you try, you fail. And the one difference, or the real difference, is pausing. So when you fall down, in my experience, laying down for a little bit and not getting up so quickly is part of the process if you want to learn, because in that moment of pause, you take a moment to reflect. You take a moment of introspection into why you fell to the ground, what you're feeling at the moment, and is there something you can learn? And if you take that moment to pause and look back at that experiment that you had, and that's what it was. Anything in life is an experiment. Then you have an experience. And if you analyze that experience, oftentimes you can find something that worked or find something that that didn't work. And by not repeating the thing that didn't work or repeating the thing that did work, over time, that will compound into more success. And as you start to build upon that and build upon that and build upon that, like the toddler, you will then learn to walk.
Very well said, Mr. Ari. Your book challenges the cult of achievement that dominates modern parenting and education. What's the most damaging myth about success and failure that you see holding people back?
The most damaging myth is the lie that we've been told that failure is bad. And at one point, when we got to, I don't know exactly when it is in modern society, but there's a moment where, as parents, and I'm the father of three beautiful children, I've been blessed enough to see three of my children learn how to walk. And now I'm proud to say they successfully, all three, do walk. We didn't give up on them. We didn't say, oh shit, you'll never learn how to walk again, you idiot. Learned how to walk by standing up and falling many times. And as they learned to stand up and walk, we cheered. He said, hey, great job. You did it. Almost. You can do it. And then at one point, as a society, we start to say, you failed your test. Bad. You got one wrong. Bad. And that is a failure of society. That is a cultural, universal failure in this type A personality world that I think transcends countries, cultures, languages. At one point, we say bad, 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 bad. And I don't know exactly when that happens, but it's somewhere between a toddler learning to walk and starting primary education. Somewhere in between that, we shifted that into something that was incorrect. And that miseducation, that lie that we have taught our children is the biggest threat and failure of all.
You talk about failures as essential for building autonomy, competence, and resilience. Can you walk us through how a single, well processed failure actively builds each of those traits in a way that constant success cannot, Mr. Ari?
Absolutely. In my life, success taught me nothing. Success, I think the only thing it taught me at sometimes was to be arrogant and to think that I did something so great and I'm so good, when in reality, life is about team. Life is about community. You don't do anything in life alone. Everything has people and experiences. And if it's not other people helping you, someone up top is helping you, some divinity, some spirituality, some infinite intelligence, nature, even the food that you eat in your mouth is not alone that metabolizes into energy, for your body. This experience of being a human being or being a part of this ecosystem is collective. It's a collective consciousness that comes in, and we only learn that at the times when we really get hit down and something shocks us, some tragedy or some wall blocks us in our process of learning. And that happens to everybody that experiences anything, just growing pains, just the act of physically growing in height. You experience pain in your legs, and that pain is what offers you the moment to have reflection. And I think it's a scientific formula. It's pain plus reflection equals progress. And in that pain, and if you take the moment to have reflection, you have progress. And I think progress is one of the secret recipes in any type of joy or fulfillment.
Indeed, interesting, Mr. Ari. So, one of the hardest concepts is the productive struggle. How can a parent, teacher, or manager tell difference between struggle that's necessary for growth and one that's truly harmful or overwhelming?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. Being a parent is a very thankless job in a lot of ways, or thankless job or privilege. I guess a job you can quit your job, so it's not a job. It's a responsibility, and every parent has to find that guidance, for themselves. But there is a line I can tell you with how you treat yourself as somebody that is valued hard work and hyper performance and education and schooling and business, health, wellness, myself. There's a fine line between being hard on yourself and having discipline and self abuse. There is a line there of you're being so hard on yourself that it becomes counterproductive. And I've experienced this in my own life, in many different places. So having discipline and choosing the pain of discipline versus the pain of regret is part of progress. And I think that, the pain of discipline weighs less in the long run. Discipline weighs ounces, regret can weigh pounds, tons. And you can ask anybody laying on their deathbed, this question, and they'll oftentimes speak to this. But as a parent, there's a line between what could be abuse and what could be productivity. And you, as a parent, I believe, have this inside of your conscience. I think infinite intelligence placed this knowledge inside of us. But I will say that there's been studies after studies after studies that, as parents, we have to set ourselves, our children up in situations where they can fail early and fail fast and learn how to get up. Can we set up safeguards around that? Absolutely. As managers of businesses and leading people, whether in our community, whether in our businesses, the same thing happens. We have to have a culture that allows failure, that allows some kind of failure so that there can be progress. Because I believe that all of progress, if you're learning how to play the piano, you have a teacher, you have a coach there, you're playing and you screw it up and then you stop and you try it again and then you try it again. But there is this miseducation of modern culture that failure is a bad thing. And the art of finding that balance is your indoctrination as a human being. You need to find that balance. It is personalized. If you tell a Navy SEAL, or, what it means to be disciplined, that'll be very different than if you're training, a young person, and in their community, how to dance in the ballet, or, how to be a football player in fifth grade, or there's so many different ways and balances that us as educators and us educating ourselves in this life journey have to find that. And I don't think it's a science. I think it's an art. And I think there's a balance that it changes, and we have to try and we have to experiment with what those boundaries are. But as long as we do it with an empathetic heart, we do it with the intention for growth and the intention to contribute, I think that'll gently put us on the path. Because if we do it with destructive emotions, that by itself, I think, will end up causing more harm than good.
Again, empowering answer, Mr. Ari. You address the rescuer's anxiety. What is the often harder for the adult to watch a child struggle than it is for the child to actually go through the struggle? How do we manage our anxiety to avoid swooping in?
Very difficultly. And I don't know if I'm good at it by any stretch of the imagination. Watching your kid fall down, watching your kid struggle, is a very difficult thing, for a parent. And I don't think I'm an expert on this by any stretch of the imagination. I think you can get much smarter people, psychologists and doctors or experts, to explain the child's psychology better than me. But I can tell you there's a great joy in parenting and being a CEO, in watching your staff, watching your children experiment, experience, and fail, but then learn, and then watching them succeed is one of the most fulfilling and beautiful things you can ever see as a CEO. One of the most beautiful things you can ever see as a parent or as a friend, anyone that you're coaching or guiding or mentoring. It just has such an exhilaration, watching that happen. So I myself aspire to become better in those roles myself, and I aspire to become better at it in dealing with myself, dealing with myself as well, and not being so abusive to myself if I'm failing, or coming away from perfectionism versus progress. But I think that dance itself is how we learn, and failing and how we do that is how we learn. But taking a moment to give ourselves a little bit of grace, give our children a little bit of grace, give our students a little bit of grace, and believe that they have intelligence within themselves. They have grace within themselves to overcome it and teach us in the process. I've been more surprised by my own children and my own staff, and my own team, and their resilience, their grit, their ingenuity, more than anything, where I think I've learned more from them than I've ever taught them myself.
Mr. Ari, let's talk about the building resilience and how to. Let's talk about the praise. You created generic, you are so smart praise. What does the effective process focused praise sound like? And how does it refrain a child's or employee's relationship with challenge?
I think it's very important. I think things that are repeated in general tend to become more frequent in memory. You know, repetition is the mother of all learning, which has been said for generations. And I think if you repeat these types of affirmations, especially to a young impressionable mind, it starts to become part of their software makeup. You are smart, you are wise, you are powerful, you are brilliant, you are kind. Just like we say those things to ourselves, and the other things, the harsher terms also become embedded as well. I don't believe the human mind or the psyche discriminates against you're an idiot, you're stupid, you'll never be able to do it, versus these other things. And I think that as educators, if we can find ways to affirm those and create these boundaries where there are abilities to try and experiment and try again. And like I said, I don't have an exact answer for any of this, and I've certainly failed at this more times than I care to admit, but I do believe in the power of words. I believe in the power of these affirmations, that they can really do incredible things. I think the video, Tavian, went out. Hello? I can't hear him. Give me 1 second. Oh, shit. Is it turning back on? I think it was live, too. Sorry about that. I lost you for a second, Daniel. Can you hear me now? I can't hear him. I can't hear you, Daniel. Oh, God. Oh, no. Can you hear me? I can't hear him.
Hear you. Yes, I can hear
I
you,
can hear
Mr.
you now.
Ari.
You're
Sorry for
back.
that. Yes.
Sorry, we had a technology failure that I guess we'll have to learn from next time.
No worries at all. No worries at all, Mr. Ari. So let's talk about the deeper implications and new ones. There's an important line between failing forward and enabling irresponsibility. How do we set clear expectations and boundaries while still allowing room for the learning that comes from mistakes?
Well, I think one place we can draw from, if I put on my lawyer hat, okay, and I say, a law, as a general rule, is meant to reflect the needs of a society at any given moment. Okay, a law. It's supposed to create order. And I think if we take the same analogy of creating laws and rules and boundaries as a framework, is every law perfect? No. But it's the best we can do with what we have at the moment. And then laws change, they evolve. Um, and I think there's certain fundamental laws. I know in the United States, the first 10 are called the Bill of Rights. The first 10 amendments are the Bill of Rights, and these are supposed to be immutable to freedom and thoughts. And I think the same thing applies for any type of system. There should be some initial laws that we know with the best piece of knowledge we have at that moment to be immutable, to be pillars. And then we start experiencing. So back to the same point, and laws are meant to be changed. In my core business, okay, as a real estate developer, zoning and entitlements. So, I mean, if you buy a piece of land, I buy a huge 300-acre piece of land that was meant to be a farm, the law doesn't allow you to build houses. But if I believe that the population is growing, that law needs to be changed. I can go through a series of procedures. I can talk to the city council. I can meet with the mayor. I can meet with other neighbors and change that law so we can build houses and apartments and other things. And I think this is the same framework that I think if we establish certain laws, whether it's rules within our household for our children, whether it's laws or that for our company, pillars of what the operating business should be. And within those laws, we start to have experiences and we start to see which ones are applicable and which ones need to be changed and having systems to do that.
Very well said, Mr. Ari. Very well said indeed. Writing this book required examining your own practices. What is the most humbling failure or mistake you made on your own journey as a parent or a professional that commented and cemented these ideas for you?
Well, as a businessman, you know, one of my first very big businesses, which you'll learn about in the book, was a big entertainment company that we had planned everything out. We had planned these huge parties for the Super Bowl. This was actually the 15-year anniversary of the failure of that business because the Super Bowl was yesterday, and we had sold tickets. We had signed the halftime show was the biggest acts, and then the biggest ice storm in the history of Texas hit the party. And then tickets got charged back and flights were canceled. And that was not something that we could have planned for. It was an unimaginable experience at the time. And that taught me as a business person and as the student of life that you can still plan for the unplannable. You can create contingency plans, even if they seem very low probability. Now, in every investment that we make, we run through a workshopping process of what are we not seeing? What could happen that is unthinkable? Keep a little extra cash reserves, or whatever comes where we plan for the unexpected. And that's been one of the greatest gifts of my life. And I think a huge part of everything that I do in this life in terms of managing risk.
Before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in sixth season, abstract poetry in third season, and of course my book 101 review in sixth season too, comedy 101 in fourth season, and my food 101 in sixth season as well, geography 101 love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 are in fifth season, Science 101, Sex 101 in its fourth season, and my baby podcast, Spiritual Awakening, Trivia 101, Law 101, Mental Health 101, Motivation 101, Entrepreneurship 101, and of course, my Bible Verses 101 are one first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Ari, I'm inviting you to be part of my Law 101, Entrepreneurship 101, or any of my podcasts, please do come over and let's make a great episode and let's empower people lover through the world through your knowledge and wisdom. So if you could give a good get every parent, teacher, and manager to stop one specific behavior to start one new practice tomorrow, what would they be?
I would encourage failure. Yes, within systems, like we said, within certain boundaries, but I would start promoting a culture that encourages your staff, your team, your children to fail so that they can learn and become the best possible people they can for you, for the company, for your customers, and all the people that they contribute to.
Yes, definitely encourage failure, people, because you need failure to be better, to be successful in life. So, Mr. Ari, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your advocacy, or any projects that you're doing right now?
Sure, you can find The Gift of Failure on Amazon that I think is on your screen now. Please, I encourage you to buy it. You can listen to it on Spotify, on Audible. To learn about our core business and our investment strategies, you can go to rastegarcapital.com or find us on the various social media platforms at Rastegar on Instagram or on LinkedIn. And please reach out to us and read the book. And if there's anything we can help you with, there's always email addresses and ways to contact us. I look forward to hearing from you.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Ari Rastegar because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering advocacy like this to rise. So, Mr. Ari, I have one more question. Looking ahead, if we successfully raise a generation more comfortable with failure, what kind of innovators, partners, and citizens do you believe they will become?
I think they'll become people that continue to solve the problems that we don't even know exist yet. And I think that's the most important thing is that the next generation always foresees and sees problems that the older generation didn't even, understand were problems. And if we encourage that type of innovation, we're going to have innovational responses. We're going to have anticipation to problems, and we're going to have a much more beautiful, cohesive, unified world. And to me, that's the most important thing.
Indeed. So, Mr. Ari Rastegar, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, buddy.
Bodyguard people, see you soon.